Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Day 2 Division of Filing Review portion of the conference. My name is Bijal Patel, and myself, along with Mavis, will be presenting on filing review basics as it relates to most common reasons for refusal to receiving an ANDA application. So I'll start off by providing an overview for this discussion. First, I'll provide some statistics on refusal to receive for fiscal year 2016 and fiscal year 2017. Then I'll highlight some most commonly seen deficiencies that led to refusal to receive in fiscal year 2017. We'll then provide some means of communications and resources to avoid the RTR outcomes. So let's start by looking at some statistics. So in fiscal year 2016, 850 ANDAs were submitted. Of those, 216 ANDAs were refused to receive. 107 applicants of the 216 submitted rescission requests, and 6 rescissions were granted. Looking at year 2017, 1,320 ANDAs were submitted. Of the 1,320 ANDAs, 168 ANDAs were refused to receive. 91 applicants submitted rescission requests, and 7 rescissions were granted. So here you can see there was about 50% reduction in the number of ANDAs that were refused to receive in fiscal year 2017 compared to fiscal year 2016. For some of us that are more visual, let's look at some those numbers graphically. So here again, we can see that there were more ANDAs submitted in year 2017 compared to 2016. Fewer ANDAs were refused to receive in fiscal year 2017 compared to 2016. Fewer rescission requests were submitted, and about the same number of rescissions were granted. So here we can see that the agency and the applicants are working well together to reducing the number of ANDAs that are refused and improving the quality of applications that are being submitted. So let me highlight some of the most common deficiencies that led to refuse to receive in fiscal year 2017. Here I would like to mention that these deficiencies that I'm about to review were consistent amongst both no-voice and seasoned applicants alike. Okay, so inadequate stability data. This included lack of 2 API lots being used and or lack of 3 test batches being manufactured. Another deficiency we commonly saw was inadequate dissolution studies data, and this included all dissolution as applicable. For example, half-tablet dissolution for functionally scored modified release products. The next common deficiency was lack of justification for proposed limits of drug product and or drug substance impurities or degradation product. We also found that incomplete response to deficiencies, including ECTD deficiencies, was also a common reason for RTR. Drug product was not qualitatively and quantitatively the same, or Q1, Q2 the same to reference listed product. That was another reason. And last but not the least, incomplete and or inadequate bioequivalence study data was also a reason for RTR. So I'll review these deficiencies a little bit more in the next few slides. So let's talk about inadequate stability. As I mentioned, this was lack of 2 API lots being used and or lack of 3 test batches being manufactured. So as you may know, 2 API lots should be used to manufacture each strength of proposed drug product. For example, if the applicant is proposing 5 milligram and 10 milligram strength, both strengths should be manufactured using at least 2 API lots. Also, minimum of 3 test batches should be manufactured, and data must be submitted for all executed batch records in clear and legible format as per the guidance recommendation. When accelerated and long-term studies, both of these studies must be carried out for all test batches for at least 6 months or 180 days, and data must be provided in clear, legible format. And this should be done at 3 time points, for example, 0, 3, and 6 months. Also, when the 6-month accelerated studies show significant change or failure of any attribute, the study should still be carried out for full 180 days, and data must be submitted in clear, legible format at time of ANDA submission, along with all other required studies, such as both orientation, worst case and non-worst case orientation for some products that require such studies. So let's talk about inadequate dissolution data. So as you may know, applicants should follow product-specific guidance recommended dissolution studies, and this would include alcohol dose dumping studies when necessary. Also, half-tablet dissolution studies must be performed for functionally scored modified release products. 12 dosage unit comparative dissolution studies should be performed on each strength of test and reference listed drug. And again, all the data should be submitted as per guidance recommended format. The next most common deficiency that we encountered was lack of justification for proposed limits of drug product and or drug substance impurities or degradation product. So for specified identified impurities, if the acceptance criteria exceed the regulatory qualification threshold, justification must be provided. Also, for specified unidentified impurities, if the acceptance criteria exceeds the regulatory identification threshold, justification must be provided. For unspecified impurities or degradation product, if the acceptance criteria should not exceed the regulatory IT threshold. Also, USP would not be an adequate justification for unspecified impurities. Again, provide all supporting data and information to justify any regulatory threshold limits that exceed the acceptance criteria. And the data should be provided in guidance recommended format. The next most commonly encountered deficiency that led to RTR in year 2017 was incomplete response to deficiencies. So as you may know, response must be provided to information requests within 7 calendar days. All deficiencies should be addressed accurately or completely, and the documents must follow ECTD and PDF specification as per the guidance. Ensure that all the folders, subsections, and leaflets are complete, and also make sure that there are no duplicate files in the original submission and any amendments that follow the information request. If you do need assistance with ECTD, please contact CEDAR ESUP at esup@fda.hhs.gov prior to responding within the 7 calendar days. Okay, so the last deficiency that I will be talking about today is incomplete and or inadequate bioequivalence study data. As you may know, applicants should follow guidance recommended bioequivalence studies and provide all the study data in module 2.7 as per the guidance recommendation. And this includes the long-term storage stability data. That was one of the common reasons that we also saw that led to RTR in fiscal year 2017. When applicants conduct studies that are not recommended in bioequivalence guidance, justification must be provided for the deviation from the FDA guidance recommendation, along with all the study data in Module 2.7 as per the guidance recommended tabular format. Okay, so far I provided you with some statistics that led to refuse to receive statistics in fiscal year 2016 and fiscal year 2017. Then I highlighted some most common reasons that led to refuse to receive in fiscal year 2017. Now my colleague here will take over for the remainder of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bijo. So the last common deficiency that we encountered in the Division of Filing Review for refusing ANDAs was that the proposed formulations were not Q1, Q2 to that of the ROD, meaning that the proposed formulations did not contain the same active and or inactive ingredient and in the same concentration as the ROD, with sameness of concentration here being interpreted as within 95% to 105% of the ROD formulation. For parenteral, ophthalmic, otic solution drug products, they must be Q1, Q2 to that of the ROD. Specific changes from the ROD drug product are permitted for exception excipients. However, applicants must provide justification for all exception and active ingredient changes, demonstrating that the changes would not affect the safety and efficacy of the proposed drug product at the time of the ANDA submission. It's always a good idea to check the product-specific guidance for the Q1, Q2 requirement, as you could have other dosage forms that might require Q1, Q2 as a requirement in the product-specific guidance. Before submitting an ANDA, an applicant can submit a control correspondence to request for Q1, Q2 evaluation, and I'll talk more about that as we go along the presentation. With all the RTR deficiencies that we talked about, applicants can request for a rescission request as deemed necessary, and all reconsideration requests should be submitted directly to the ANDA as an amendment and should include a cover letter clearly stating request for reconsideration of RTR. You can contact the DFR rescission request mailbox at dfrsupervisor@fda.hhs.gov if you have questions regarding your refuse to receive letter. So now, given the most common deficiencies we encountered that led to a refusal to receive in the Division of Filing for fiscal year 2017. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the enhancements that FDA and generic drug manufacturers alike committed to help with the generic drug manufacturing process in the GDUFA 2 commitment letter. One of those enhancements is in the form of a control correspondence. And so I'm going to define what a control correspondence is, the different types as outlined in the new draft guidance, the November 2017 draft guidance for control correspondences related to generic drug development, and talk about what our commitments are to responding to these control correspondences to hopefully aid industry along the generic drug manufacturing process. For the November 2017 guidance for controlled correspondences, there are now two types of controlled correspondences. The first one is categorized as the standard controlled correspondence, and that is when industry or related generic drug manufacturing company is submitting a controlled correspondence on behalf of a generic drug manufacturer, requesting information on a specific element of a generic drug development process. In addition, a standard control involves requests relating to post-approval submission requirements that are not covered by a CETA post-approval change guidance, although not specific to an ANDA. The second category for a control is categorized as the complex control, and those involve requests relating to the evaluation of clinical content, review of bioequivalence protocols for drugs that reference listed drugs, with risk evaluation and mitigation strategies with elements to assure safe use, and evaluation of alternative BD approaches within the same study type. So FDA in the GDFA 2 commitment letter has committed to review and respond to 90% of standard control correspondences within 60 calendar days. And for that of complex control correspondences, we have committed to review and respond to 90% within 120 calendar days. And if your control correspondence is related to one or more pending citizens petition, then the 60 or corresponding 120 calendar day time frame will begin on the date that FDA responds to the petition or the last pending petition. In the draft guidance for control, the November 2017 edition, industry now has the chance to request for clarification of ambiguity if the response we provide to the control correspondence or a significant portion of it merits further clarification. So you do have a chance to request for clarification within 7 calendar days of our issuance to the control correspondence response. And we have committed to review and respond to 90% of clarification of ambiguities within 14 calendar days. So I'll talk about the main elements that we can review in the Division of Filing Review to aid generic drug manufacturers in the ANDA submission process. The first one that we review, and this is really the majority of the controls that we receive, is that for request for Q1, Q2 evaluation of the proposed formulation to that of the reference listed drug. The second is request related to inactive ingredient evaluations. And the third is filing strategy inquiries. So I'll just give a few tips on how to properly submit your controls and some good practices to follow to make sure that your control is submitted in full at the time of submission to aid us in being able to review and respond to your control in a timely manner as we have committed to do so in the commitment letter. All Q1, Q2 evaluations should reference a relevant ROD, and all ROD information should be provided in detail at the time of submission of your control, including the ROD application number, proprietary name, active ingredient, dosage form, route of administration, the ROD approval date, and to indicate whether the ROD is a prescription, over the counter, or in the discontinued section of the Orange Book. We do ask that for Q1, Q2 evaluation requests no more than 3 proposed formulations are submitted at a time to give FDA a reasonable amount of time to be able to review the controls in a reasonable time frame. It's always a good idea to make sure that all details regarding the proposed formulations are included at the time of submission for your control to give us the full information that we need to be able to properly assess your formulation to that of the ROD. So for instance, for active ingredients, do make sure that all relevant salt forms are indicated in the control. For inactive ingredients, make sure that all grades are specified, hydration states, and depending on the dosage form, that the percent composition is properly provided in the proposed formulations that you submit. The same goes for IID, justification, and inactive ingredient evaluations. Do make sure that they reference a relevant ROD specific to the strength and dosage form for us to be able to conduct a proper review for the inactive ingredient assessment. Some more helpful tips for controlled correspondences. They should be submitted to the generic drugs at fda.hhs.gov email and not to an individual person's email, so not my email. And do make sure that your control is on your corporate letterhead and attached to the email. You don't need extra copies of the control in paper form via mail or fax. And if you are a foreign applicant requesting a control, it has to be submitted by a U.S. agent on your behalf. I have up here control correspondences received per discipline from fiscal year 2012 to 2017, just to show us the number of growing controls we have received over the years. So you can tell that consistently we have received more controls year after year. And if you look at Office of Regulatory Operations, under which the Division of Filing operates under, you can tell that for fiscal year 2017 alone, we received well over 1,000 control correspondences that we had to review and respond to. So we do get a large number of control correspondences that we have committed to review and respond to by. So really ensuring that you provide the necessary details the first time around will really aid us in being able to properly review and respond to your control correspondences in a timely manner to aid you during your ANDA submission process. I have up here some of the other review disciplines that do review control correspondences to aid in the generic drug manufacturing process. You have OGD's Office of Bioequivalence, OGD Office of Research and Standards, Division of Filing and Division of Labeling Review under OGD's Office of Regulatory Operations, OGD's Office of Generic Drug Policy, and OPQ's Office of Policy for Pharmaceutical Quality. So all of these different disciplines do review different elements for the controls. So do follow the guidance for controls to make sure that your element of review is going to the proper discipline, because we can review multiple elements in the same control. So for instance, you cannot submit a request for a clinical evaluation or a B-study alternative approach without a Q1, Q2 assessment, because two different disciplines will be reviewing it, and then we have to send it back for you to resubmit it. And so given the number of controls we are receiving, making sure that you're following the guidance and sending your request to the proper discipline will aid in the review process for these control correspondences. Some resources to refer to: definitely do reference the draft guidance for industry control correspondence related to generic drug development. It has all the steps and all the details that I have summarized today for how to properly submit your control correspondences for review. And you can refer to the GDUFA 2 commitment letter, which has some of the timelines we have committed to be able to review and respond to the controls by. Some contact points for all the topics we have talked about today. For control correspondences, do send those inquiries to generic drugs at fda.hhs.gov. For ANDA filing status inquiries, those should go to the ANDA filing at fda.hhs.gov email. And if you have questions regarding your refuse to receive letter or rescission request, send those to DFR supervisor at fda.hhs.gov. And this last slide has some of the guidances you can refer to during your generic drug manufacturing process in your ANDA preparation process, worth of information, guidance recommended, tips that you can refer to during your submission process. So we hope that with sharing light on the most common deficiencies that we saw for fiscal year 2017 that led to refusal to receive, sharing some of the resources and some of the enhancements that you can utilize in the generic drug manufacturing process, that all of this information would aid industry in preparing better ANDAs with submission and aid in bringing more generic drugs to the market. Thank you for your time, and hope you enjoy the rest of